This is Lecker. I'm Lucy Dearlove. This year, things are going to be slightly different on the podcast. So you can expect a kind of standalone narrative podcast series coming in a few months' time on the main podcast feed. But aside from that, there's going to be regular interview episodes with some of my favourite and most admired people in food. The twist is that these interview episodes will be exclusive to Patreon subscribers. And so after this episode has gone out, an interview with the wonderful Bre Graham, future interview episodes will only be available to listen to within the Lecker Patreon and not on the main podcast feed. You can subscribe to the Patreon for £3 a month and get access to all the episodes. These interviews are going to come and go in seasons, and each season will have a different theme. We're beginning with breakfast.
For the last 2 weeks, consistently, I've had peanut butter on toast. And now that streak has been broken, I'm musing the next breakfast obsession.
A reminder that you can follow Lecker on Twitter and Instagram at Lecker Podcast. And as well as Patreon, another way you can support the podcast is by buying merch. There's t-shirts and tote bags available on the Lecker T-Mill site, and zines and patches on Big Cartel. There are links in the show notes. You can find access to them there. And now, on with the show. Bre Graham is an Australian writer and editor based in London. She's also a fantastic cook, and the recipes on her weekly newsletter, Dishes to Delight, never failed to make my mouth water. Bre's debut cookbook, Table for Two, is published this week, and I caught up with her to ask her some very important questions about breakfast.
So my first ever meal, first ever thing that I ate when I first came to London, I was 14, and my dad's Irish, and lived in London for a long time, and it was his first time taking his kids, to we went back to Belfast and saw his family, and went to London where he used to live, and he was so excited. We landed again at Heathrow really, really early in the morning. And, I was 14. I was a stroppy, moody teenager. It was ugh, family holiday to London, boring. Such a brat.
Yeah.
I think we there's some really great outfit choices in the photos of that holiday. Just to paint that picture. There was some Trilby hats, I believe.
It truly was the era.
It really was, yeah. And so we got to I think we're staying at a service department sort of thing, and left our bags, and Dad was we're gonna go to this old school cafe where I used to go in the 80s, and I was again ooh, boring, whatever, and it was just off Trafalgar Square, and it's still there. And I went probably a month ago, and it is the most bonkers but magical place, because again, living in London, how often would we go to Trafalgar Square? Never. How often would we eat in Trafalgar Square, let alone even visit it? And it's called Breadline Cafe, and it has not been touched really since the 70s, maybe 60s. It's got orange plastic chairs that are built in, and it's amazing, but it actually it does a really, really good fry up. And it was just the most revelatory sort of experience to have been on this really, really long flight and just be so shitty and moody, and to just eat this incredible fry up. It was life-changing, mood shifting.
Can you remember what was in the fry up when you had it when you were 14?
So I'm imagining, I had it again recently, and I'm imagining it's the sort of place that doesn't really change what they do. So it's pretty classic: sausages, black pudding, fried eggs, bread that is like very buttery, probably maybe also fried, baked beans and a tomato.
Classic.
Yeah, it's a good one. And yeah, I think it's just all like the setting as well. But yeah, I go there quite often. And funny enough, when I met my boyfriend, I remember telling him the story and he was like, oh, that place. I go to that place.
No way.
Yeah. And so it's become like weirdly, again, because it's not somewhere that you would ever go living in London.
Yeah.
And he had been there for fry-ups as well. And so I think it kind of is this slightly like nostalgic, culty place. I am a breakfast person, but I am like a very like chaotic breakfast person.
Okay.
I like my breakfast moods come in like big mood swings. So sometimes I'll have like going through a real toast phase at the moment. But like that will last like maybe a week, 2 weeks, and then like I won't be able to touch toast for breakfast for like the next month. And then it will go in another phase, you know?
So you eat breakfast every day, but it's not necessarily a dyed in the wool, like set in stone.
Exactly. Yeah. And it you know, it can be, I mean, I'm very spoilt by my lovely boyfriend who brings me a coffee in bed every morning. So that is that's like the beginning of breakfast. And so always have a coffee, and then depending on my sort of timings of how sort of luxurious my time is in the morning, I will make a bigger breakfast or I will have something quick running out the door.
And do you have a difference between your weekend and your weekday breakfast, or are you kind of set on your one thing when you're having that for the period of time?
No, Saturday morning breakfast specifically, even more than like a Sunday morning breakfast, is special. Okay. Saturday morning breakfast is like, I'd say 90% of the time it's pancakes. Have to make pancakes. I'm a big pancake person. And I think I really like, big about like the ritual of pancakes as well. I think there's something so nice about the time that it takes to make them, the kind of, you have to, you sort of work through the batter and you have to spend time flipping each one. It's not something quick. It's not like it's done and then it's over. You know, if you're making them for another person, you have to make the decision. Are you going to give them straight out of the pan, or are you going to make a stack and keep them all warm? It's kind of, it's got a really nice ritual to it.
I love that. And what do you eat on your pancakes?
I am citrus all the way. So, but not just lemon. Like I really love fresh oranges squeezed on pancakes, or grapefruit or blood oranges, and like a sprinkle of sugar that still has to be like a little bit crunchy. So like
so like a what are they like what's
like a lemon and sugar vibe.
Lovely.
But
like the sugar
citrus.
you get on top of muffins, kind of like really granular type thing. Okay.
Yeah.
And we're talking American pancakes or like
American
pancakes.
Well, I'm gonna coin them Australian pancakes.
Okay, right. That's my bad.
They're not, because they're like not quite like as muffiny, fluffy as like an American pancake. And I always use buttermilk or kefir or something like that. So it's kind of like, it's closer to an American pancake than a crepe sort of situation, but not quite as dense and fluffy. Lighter.
Yeah.
A lighter situation.
Because breakfast and brunch, that is a big deal in Australia, right?
Oh, yeah. I think there's definitely some Australians that like to say that we invented brunch. To an extent, I think that could be true. Bill Granger is the king of the Australian brunch, and 100%. I mean, I grew up cooking from his books. He was a big influence. My mum cooked from his books because we lived away from Sydney for a long time. And so like Sydney Food, one of his first ones, I think that's the book that the ricotta hotcakes are in, which are his like famous. And they are definitely a formative recipe. And
so when you were growing up, kind of in and out of Sydney, what would you eat for breakfast at that point?
There was a lot, again, very seasonal and very like, it would be the same thing for maybe like 2 weeks and then you wouldn't eat it again for another 6 months or something. So a lot of porridge in winter, like porridge with brown sugar, when we were living in Sydney when I was a kid. So that was like, winter morning sort of thing. Crumpets with lots of honey and butter. My mum always likes to say that Australia has better crumpets than the UK because we can get wholemeal crumpets, which apparently apparently have the nuttiness of wholemeal flour in a crumpet with honey and butter. It's a very good situation.
That sounds great.
They are very good. And then as a kid growing up in Singapore for breakfast, again, climate differences, quite light fruit, cereal, cold things. At school canteen, we'd get roti prata for breakfast, which we would cover in packets, the little sachets of sugar that you'd get from coffee, like real healthy, healthy stuff. Yeah, but they were good.
How long were you in Singapore? Did you end up really missing kind of the Sydney food scene? Well, I guess not food scene, but the food you'd eaten at home.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think so. We lived in Singapore for 10 years from when I was 3 to 13, and I think Singapore is like just the most incredible food culture. But what it doesn't have is that seasonal shift. I mean, it's kind of wet or dry, so you're not waking up to sort of wintry mornings and thinking, oh, that's a bit of a chill in the air. And I think that was so fun. Then when we moved back to have porridge and to have crumpets that are hot and dripping with butter and things like that, because you just don't feel like that when it's sort of 35 degrees and humid.
Yeah, sure. Do you think living there changed any of your breakfast habits like now? Or do you think you sort of returned to what you were doing previously?
I think so. I think, there's still nothing I love more, like in summer, even in London. I mean, we had crazy heat waves this year. And, all I want for breakfast when it's that temperature is like half a watermelon. Just give me that and I'm all good. Or just some pineapple. Or like, I think, fresh fruit, and especially, tropical fruit and things like that is just so lovely when the weather is like that.
Yeah, definitely. And do you like to go out for breakfast? Is that something that you do in London?
I do, but rarely. It's like going out for breakfast is like special occasion kind of vibes.
Yeah, I would agree.
So it's like, I mean, kind of like, I was sort of thinking, breakfasts out have always kind of pretty much been linked to being jet lagged for me. So it's kind of like from going, because I'm not necessarily a morning person. I don't necessarily wake up that early, but
I relate.
When I'm like traveling back between London or Sydney or things like that, jet lag means you wake up really, really early in the morning. Yeah. So I have all of these like really strong, when I was thinking about breakfast and knowing that's what we were going to talk about, I was like, right, what breakfasts are those most meaningful or memorable ones? And those really like watching the sunrise breakfast, because it happens so rarely in normal times, have always been tied to when I've been really jet lagged. So like last time I came back from Sydney, I sort of landed, I think, at like 5 a.m. And as the sun was rising in like London, January, winter, we went to a cafe in Primrose Hill, walked there, saw the sunrise. Like it was so beautiful and so evocative and just so memorable, and had like a full English fry up for breakfast, which was so lovely and so nice and so different from anything I'd want to eat in Sydney in the summer.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Oh, that's nice. It's nice to have a silver lining, because it's always a little bit depressing to return from like a long trip. And
totally. And I think too, like the same situation then going to Sydney, I still, you're still jet lagged, so you're still waking up really early, and again, like watching the sunrise like over the ocean, with like a mango in the middle of summer, and you've just left London is magical. Yes. So yeah, such a nice way to start the day.
Do you think that your kind of tastes in breakfast and your breakfast habits are reflective of your wider food tastes and habits? Because I feel like for me, so I am incredibly, like, I'm a creature of habit with breakfast. Like, I eat muesli with yogurt every single day. Sometimes I have some fruit on it. And I've got to the point now where like I feel weird if I don't start my day with it. It's got to the point where sometimes I will take it, like if I'm going somewhere, like if I'm getting a train or something. Don't get me wrong, I love a prep breakfast on the go. But sometimes I just take some like a little pot of muesli and yogurt with me because I'm like I just know if I've got it, it'll be fine and I won't be hungry. But that is the opposite of like every other of my food habits. Like I don't really like sweet things that much. Like I have a very savoury tooth. I am not a creature of habit in any other way. Like I hate eating the same thing over and over again. Like I hate even eating, if I prep a lunch, like a salad or something, by the second day I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's so my boyfriend is like that. My boyfriend Joe eats the same breakfast.
Oh my God.
And this is he watches me make pancakes on a Saturday morning. He's like, I'm all good.
Really?
It is a point of contention in our relationship. But
Oh my
he
God.
eats cereal every single day for breakfast.
The
Unless
same
we're going
cereal?
no, he switches it up.
Okay.
He likes like Weetabix, Cheerios, sometimes like bran flaky kind of things. But he just likes it.
Wow.
And it like I'll eat cereal maybe like once in a blue moon, but like I am as chaotic in my breakfast shifts as I am in lunch, dinner, all of that. Yeah. Sometimes I can't, like, for the last, like, 2 weeks consistently, I've had peanut butter on toast for, like, 2 weeks straight. And now that streak has been broken. And now I'm musing the next, like, breakfast obsession. So, yeah, I think it's going to be marmalade. I got a nice new marmalade yesterday. So I think I might go marmalade on toast for a little bit, which would be
That
good.
is a strong choice. I feel like that's a very nice, like, January breakfast. It feels very seasonal.
Very seasonal.
Also very comforting.
Yeah. It's so weather dependent, I think. And like, you know.
Yes, I do see that. I mean, I can't relate with my muesli and yogurt every single day, but like I do understand.
I do respect that, because I think that like it must be so nice to just like have that consistency. Like sometimes when I am watching my boyfriend eat cereal, I'm like, you know what you like. It's good. That's nice to be sure of something.
Good for you.
Yeah, good for you. Yeah.
Do you have, apart from changing onto your next toast streak, do you have any other breakfast-related plans, ambitions, or resolutions for 2023?
See, I was thinking about this, and I was like, some of like the best, like in the same vein, kind of as your repeated muesli yogurt thing. I love going in traveling. I love going back to eat the same things.
Yes,
so like,
okay.
I am very much looking forward to going back to the places that I love to travel and recreating those breakfasts again. So like last year in Genoa, like we're a little bit hungover, sort of the morning after drinking far too much wine. And we walked down to this bakery near the hotel we were staying in, and they have this like most amazing focaccia you've ever had in your entire life. That's like got practically like an inch of fresh pesto on top.
Oh my God.
That's then just like lightly grilled to the top, kind of cheesy caramelizes. Oh my God. And we took it down to the beach and ate it. And I just need to recreate that exact scene. Like I'm not interested in like any changes to that scenario. I just want that exact scenario. Yeah. Exactly.
That's a really good resolution.
That's
like
my
that
resolution. Yeah. Recreating.
You know, if it ain't broke.
Exactly. It's not broke. Doesn't need fixing. It's perfect. So yeah, lining that situation up again, I think, is my next breakfast
Great. I believe you can make it happen. That seems like an achievable goal.
Yeah.
And is breakfast something that you've read about, or you like reading about, or are there any breakfast related scenes in film or TV that have stuck with you over the years?
Yeah, I think breakfast is, I think more so than any other meal, I feel like it's kind of captures people's imagination.
Yes, I agree.
So, you know, that scene in Moonstruck where her mum's frying the egg inside the bread. I mean, that's just
oh my God.
And I think because it's the first meal of the day, I feel like it's so intertwined with like family life or relationships or things like that, because not like, you know, lunch, you know, maybe you're at work, maybe you're out. Breakfast is kind of that unifying thing, you know, so many scenes in films and TV, and it's the sort of nuclear family around the breakfast table, or you know, the very American style breakfasts is kind of has always sort of felt like that's like the bar set for like happiness, and that's your day. If you have that breakfast, your day can only, you know, be amazing from then on, or something like that.
That's so interesting. I think that's really true, because it's almost like obviously I think witnessing someone eat breakfast, like there's a real intimacy to it, but also it's really interesting because I think it's often so unusual for people to eat breakfast in front of people that they don't normally eat breakfast in front of, that there's this notion of this idea of performance.
Totally.
Like, you know, if I ever have friends stay over or people come round for breakfast, which is kind of unusual, but it has happened, I would like definitely not make them the breakfast that I would normally eat. I would sort of, you know, they would, which I guess like is reflective of other ways that I eat, but maybe just much more so with breakfast. I would definitely like put a spread on.
Totally.
And it feels
yeah.
like very, you know, like
Yeah, it's like, oh, this is how I eat every day.
Yeah.
I always pour my orange juice into a beautiful decanter to pour into my glass.
Jug.
Yeah. Yeah.
I definitely always buy orange juice.
Oh, yeah. I freshly squeezed this morning. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. That's a great example, though. I love that. And I think, yeah, it is definitely, there is that very sort of set, like normative ideal of family life that happens around that breakfast table. And like you can picture like a very particular kitchen as well. Like
yeah.
a kind of kitchen diner of the 50s and 60s that was very like popular in America and has like permeated all of our cultural kind of knowledge of kitchens.
Yeah, totally. And I think, just like even those breakfasts, like, I mean, I love orange juice, but like I don't really buy it often, but when I do have it, or if I'm going, it's something that I do order if I go out for breakfast, I get, tea or coffee and orange juice, and it feels like it's that special occasion. So like even the way that like drinks intertwine with the food, and it becomes a whole ritual, I think.
Yeah, totally. And so this is a very exciting week for you, because your book is coming out, Table for Two. I know I can speak for many people, many readers of your newsletter, or just fans of your work in general, to say that I'm very, very excited for it. And I can't wait to cook from it. And you have told me that breakfast is an important theme in the book. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the book is split into two sections, essentially. So the first half of the book is called Easy to Impress. And that is kind of very much focused on your like Monday to like Thursday, Friday kind of. Yeah. You don't have a huge amount of time, but you want something that looks like you've made a real effort and you want to make someone feel special. And then the second half of the book is called Just to Delight. And that is very much focused on the like, it's a special occasion. It's, the sort of, I don't know, maybe it's the Saturday morning breakfast, maybe it's, the sort of special birthday, anniversary, whatever. But in each of those chapters, breakfast is a third of each chapter. I can't do maths, but that is quite, it's significant.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So that's like a third of the whole book, right?
That's a good way to... Yes, that's why I am not a mathematician. Yes.
Which is great, because obviously breakfast is, as they say, the most important meal of the day. It is one of our three main meals of the day, like in this kind of, in our cultural kind of understanding of how eating works. But it's often not a thing that people cook a lot of, sort of present a lot of recipes for. So it's nice that you've given it so much space. Breakfast
is a big focus, and I think too, definitely, so tied to the theme of the book and that intimacy of cooking for one other person. So, it's very much not focused on romantic love. It's, your mum's coming down to stay with you, and, it's so exciting because your mum's in town, or, your dad's in town, and they may be just here, I don't know, they're staying one night or something like that, but you want to make that moment feel really special. Your best friend, your sister, whatever. And I think, what you said before about breakfast is that it is an intimate meal to share with someone and to kind of have insight on. So I think that was really apparent to me when I was writing about, those kind of moments within your day, that a table for two breakfast moment is a big one.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's so nice to talk about the cooking we do outside of romantic relationships, because like it's so important, and those relationships are so important. And so I really like the idea that you've played with that kind of table for two that makes you think of a romantic context, but actually it's not just about that.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think, again, just like, I essentially just rolled out of bed before speaking to you.
Great.
And that, like,
it's
no
about
matter,
breakfast, it makes
it's
sense.
about breakfast. But like whoever, maybe you've got a friend that's you've been out the night before and your friend stayed over, and I have so many breakfast moments of me with my like close friends where you're hungover sitting at the table, you look like something the cat's just dragged in, and it's those breakfast moments, sharing that, and you're recounting the night before is some of the most intimate and like beautiful moments of my friendships. And so I really wanted a place for those stories and those recipes to live.
Yeah, I love that. And can you give us a little kind of hint of some of the dishes that we can expect to find in the book?
Totally. So so in the first chapter, some of like the quick easy sort of things, or things that you can kind of do in advance and be like, oh, that I just whipped that up. That's there. Like I really love sort of make ahead kind of things like bircher muesli. So there's a ginger and apple bircher muesli that I really
okay. I'm definitely going to try that.
that's it, and that feels like it's got fresh ginger in it as well. So you get that real like sort of spice kick, which is super nice. And then, not controversially, but I have quite a lot of like sweeter breakfast. Obviously pancakes are a big one, so pancakes are in there. I have a savory version of pancakes as well, so it's the exact same recipe as sweet minus the sugar, so still that buttermilk base, but it has chives and cheddar folded through them.
Oh wow, yeah, that sounds amazing.
Those, a little stack of those with like bacon or mushrooms. Oh my god, so good. But then I really love, my favorite thing about like European hotel breakfast buffet is a breakfast cake. And so I'm really big into breakfast cakes. And so there's a breakfast cake in the second chapter called, I think it's called the breakfast buckle cake. And a buckle cake's like sort of that old school American cake with fruit sunken on the top, so the batter buckles around the edges of the fruit and it gets really jammy and caramelized. And there's different variations in the book that you can do depending on the season. So you can do strawberries, you can do figs. I actually made it a few days ago with blueberries, and it's just good for breakfast. It's got ricotta in it, so it's like a little bit cheesecakey. It's really not that sweet. And yeah,
that sounds like
love
a
breakfast.
perfect breakfast cake. Sounds
breakfast
so good.
cake, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I'm so excited to see the book, and congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for talking about breakfast with me. It's been a real joy.
Thank you so much. I'm going to go eat my second breakfast.
Great.
My second round of toast.
Thanks very much to Bre Graham for joining me to talk about breakfast. Bre's debut cookbook, Table for Two, is out now. I'm going to make that apple and fresh ginger birch muesli as soon as possible. It might even force me to change up my breakfast routine. Who knows? One final reminder that the next breakfast interview will be out on the Lecker Patreon in a couple of weeks' time. You can listen to that by becoming a subscriber at patreon.com/Lecker Podcast. Music is by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech. Thanks very much for listening. I'm hoping to see you for the next one on Patreon.